It was 6:35 p.m. on April 30th, 2021, and the California Police Department had just received a distress call. 30-year-old Maxwell Roberts had just been found dead with a rather strange-looking woman in a Californian office apartment. What was shocking about this discovery were the three individuals who were also discovered to be Maxwell's victims. 26-year-old Diana Chambers, his girlfriend; Lauren Hillis, an ex-girlfriend from Stanford University he meticulously deceived; and Selena Jones, a third mistress he carefully maintained a secret affair with. As investigations began, what the cops stumbled upon something so completely mind-bending and unexpected that it threw the investigation off course. Beware, this is no bedtime fairy tale. This is a disturbing tale of what happens when obsession leads to death. Born in 1990, Maxwell Roberts was raised in the suburbs of San Diego, California. He is the only son and the third child of a family of 6. It was clear Maxwell was going to be successful. His mother, Claire Roberts, a retired Californian cop, would say later. He had this unwavering ambition. Whenever Maxwell wasn't home, the whole family felt his absence acutely. However, despite such outward zeal, Maxwell lied under an unmatched layer of manipulation. One so carefully crafted, it told the dark tale of this tragic story. Growing up, Maxwell excelled in academics. He displayed an insatiable level of curiosity, often eager to learn and excited to solve complex problems. He was captain of the high school math club, president of the Student Science and Economics Society, and valedictorian of his graduating class. In an interview, Ethan Marshall, Maxwell's high school friend, remembered his fascination with math and economics. "Trust me when I tell you Maxwell was a math whiz," he said. "I remember during a study session, he breezed through a ton of calculus problems I most found difficult." After living an exemplary life in high school, Maxwell proceeded to further his education at Stanford University, where he studied accounting. But there was a side to Maxwell no one ever saw in high school, not even his parents. You see, behind his charismatic smile was a mask of secrecy and a calculating mind. And like I said earlier, he was a master manipulator, and his entry into Stanford would be where he would finally let his demons out. It was strange, but despite his academic success, Maxwell battled with a constant need for validation and attention. He was never satisfied. You might say he was relentless, but that wasn't the case because this same problem would ensnare and destroy those who were closest to him. Maxwell Roberts was a ladies' man in the true sense of the word. A man who effortlessly commanded attention wherever he went. Sharp, tall, witty, and charming, as many would say. No lady could resist him. With his masked smile, he could even win the most uptight of his mates. He seemed to be the perfect college guy for every lady. The caveat? Maxwell never saw a real meaning to relationships. He was often looking for what he could get out of them, because to him, relationships were transactional. It was here that Maxwell discovered his charm and exploited it to its fullest potential, leaving a trail of evidence that would manifest as a complex triangle of romantic relationships. It all started with when he tried finding love in his sophomore year of college. But because of the way he viewed relationships, he never stuck with just one girl. So, he would get into 3 distinct relationships, each meticulously concealed from the others. His unsuspecting victims never the wiser. At the start of Maxwell's third-year semester in college, he met Lauren Hillis, a kind, beautiful, and smart girl who also went to Stanford at the time and was also in her 3rd year. When they had first met, she thought she had finally met the man of her dreams. In Lauren's head, Maxwell was the ideal college boyfriend. With his prowess in accounting, coupled with his social charm. She couldn't let go of his attention. An Ivy League student just like her, Lauren, believed she had finally met her husband. But you know what was the funniest part of all this? Even though Maxwell was a serial cheat, he never ever had any plans of letting go of any of the ladies he had met. He wasn't exactly satisfied with one affair. Just a week after he had met Lauren, there came Selena Jones, a history student at Stanford who was also studying during Maxwell's year. Their eyes locked as they crossed paths in the campus supermarket, and she was immediately blown away by his good looks and charm. And amidst the aisles of everyday Timbs, they began discussing, and Selena was absolutely swooned. Maxwell had a way with words, and Selena was all too happy to let him have his way with her. She had found him so pleasing that she was eager to exchange numbers with him the moment he asked. The sharp, never unsatisfied guy Maxwell was soon obliged to Selena's interest in him. On the other hand, Lauren never knew of any of this. In fact, Maxwell meticulously concealed every trace, ensuring Lauren and Selena's paths never crossed. By that evening, the two had become irresistibly drawn to each other. Maxwell ensured his carefully constructed world wouldn't come crashing down. You see, in Lauren, he saw an attractive, well-liked young woman. Selena, on the other hand, represented excitement and fun. Unbeknownst to Maxwell, Selena Jones had a problem that was difficult to explain. With a mysterious past, Selena was burdened by a darkness that she had kept relatively hidden from anyone who might meet her. To sum it up, she craved control, an insatiable hunger to dictate every outcome. Everything just had to go her way, no matter the cost. The worst part? Selena's past life had been marred by a series of tumultuous, short-lived relationships. During the first months of their secret relationship, Maxwell had helplessly fallen in love with Selena. She was everything he needed to fuel his unspoken desires. "I remember when Maxwell first introduced me to Selena," Chris Davis recalled during an interview. "He was enthralled, and while I was glad to see him so excited, I couldn't shake off my concern. Just a week earlier, he had been raving about Lauren. It seemed like he was jumping from one intense relationship to another without a moment's pause." Keep in mind that Lauren was still not aware of the secret indulgence. He had no intention of giving up, often spending his day on campus with Lauren and savoring his night with Selena. Maxwell's second relationship with Selena Jones was the best he could have imagined. You see, Maxwell's relationship with Lauren lacked the excitement he craved. He found himself increasingly disillusioned, feeling that Lauren couldn't offer him the thrill that Selena provided. Selena was wild, irresistibly beautiful, and intoxicatingly adventurous. He'd constantly brag about her to his friends, unable to contain his enthusiasm for the exhilarating escape she offered. However, as the months went by, subtle changes began to surface. The sinister in Selena began to emerge. Unlike Lauren, Selena's past tumultuous life had solidified her sense of control. Soon enough, she uncovered the truth about Maxwell's ongoing relationship with Lauren. This betrayal would trigger all of Selena's deepest fears and insecurities, setting in motion a tragic chain of events that would leave an indelible mark on Stanford. As summer gave way to fall on campus, Selena had become increasingly erratic as to why Maxwell would do this. She confronted him. Maxwell, an ever-skilled manipulator, could not let the situation deteriorate. He found a way to convince Selena that he was just about to end the affair with Lauren, promising that it would be over soon. Meanwhile, whenever Maxwell and Selena would meet, it was always hidden. I mean, never meeting in open areas, but rather in secluded spots on campus at night. Places so carefully selected, Lauren would never suspect a thing. During these moments, Maxwell showered a bunch of hopes and vague promises on Selena. He promised they would have a future together, further deceiving her. However, Selena's demand on Maxwell to leave Lauren became more desperate. It was suffocating. While Lauren remained completely unaware of the whole storm brewing behind her, the situation became increasingly untenable. Little did anyone know that their actions over the next few months would shatter the calm facade of Stanford and change their lives forever. Selena's desperation to regain control grew even more. She convinced herself that if she could just get closer to Lauren, perhaps she could find the perfect way to remove her from the picture. Soon after, Selena would find opportunities where she and Lauren crossed paths, gradually inserting herself into Lauren's life under the guise of friendship. She began stalking the innocent college student, and Lauren, being naive, was not aware of the friendship she had just found with Selena. Under this same pretense, she invited Lauren to a secluded part of the campus, a time when the campus was nearly empty and she would be isolated. Selena had framed the meeting as an opportunity to catch up, but it was a trap set to lure Lauren into a deadly confrontation. As the two spoke, Selena's intentions were clearer, and with her demeanor changing, it became clearer to Lauren that Selena's attempts to befriend her were a mere facade. The confrontation escalated quickly, and Selena made her move. In an act of desperation, what followed next was the sight of a dead body lying in a secluded spot on the campus, where it would be discovered only hours later. The news of Lauren's death echoed through the whole campus. Soon after, as authorities delved deeper, they couldn't get concrete evidence as to who killed Lauren. "I was shocked when I heard the news," Lauren's then roommate had said in an interview. "I couldn't sleep because Lauren's passing haunted me each time I looked at her side of the room." Detective Katrina Peterson, a seasoned investigator assigned to the case, began to piece together the events leading up to Lauren's murder. She interviewed friends, acquaintances, and anyone who might have insights into Lauren's life and relationships. Maxwell, the boyfriend known to Lauren, was also questioned, but he maintained a calm demeanor. Unaware of the true circumstances surrounding her sudden death, Maxwell could only cry helplessly, expressing his grief with convincing sincerity. As the months passed, Selena believed Maxwell was now hers, now that Lauren was completely out of the picture. But still, Maxwell no longer paid her the attention she craved. Now Selena, growing more frustrated, began to worry. The more she pressured Maxwell, the more distant he became. On the other hand, Maxwell felt as though he was at the center of a storm, juggling Lauren's recent death with Selena's pressure. His insatiable desires grew once again, and he felt he needed one more affair to fix the cycle. However, he had the wrong answer to the perfect question. On a cold Saturday morning during winter break, Maxwell, in his 4th year at the time, attended a local event in California, where he found the solution for his insatiable desires. As Maxwell navigated through the crowd at the event, he locked eyes with a striking lady who sat gently at the corner and had traveled from Connecticut to attend this event. It was Diana Chambers. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Diana was overwhelmed by Maxwell's appearance and confident demeanor. I mean, who wouldn't? They couldn't ignore each other, and soon Maxwell quickly approached her, and they started talking. And being the gentleman he was, he had offered to drop her off at her house. Poor Diana, if only she knew what misfortune she had just thrown herself into by smiling to a stranger. You see, unlike Selena, Diana's life was a stark contrast. Born in 1994 to Lucy and David Chambers, Diana Chambers lived a happy life as a young kid who grew up in the suburbs of New Haven, Connecticut. She was the second child in a family of 4, with one older sister and 2 younger brothers. Her parents, Lucy and David Chambers, were the role models of her neighborhood. Diana's dad was a professional engineer, and her mom, a retired nurse. Her childhood was filled with stability, and she never lacked. Diana proceeded to study at an Ivy League school in her state, where she further read her education in economics and minored in computer science. I mean, this sweet, charming life was what Maxwell got attracted to, coupled with his habit of jumping from one relationship to the next. In Diana, he saw the perfect candidate for Mrs. Roberts, and Selena, on the other hand, was just a front to exhibit his hidden habits. However, Maxwell kept this deceptive course up until his graduation from Stanford University. With Maxwell graduating with honors, he got the right opportunities to establish himself as a professional accountant. On August 4th, just after Maxwell's commencement ceremony, Diana had just graduated as well. Keep in mind that Selena was never out of the picture because it was during the time after his graduation. Maxwell carefully navigated his relationship with both women, feeding them just enough affection to keep them invested. As the years passed, Maxwell was ready to establish his accounting startup in Clear Lake, California. Already filled with experience and at ease, Maxwell saw himself as a businessman. And what's a businessman without a wife? Maxwell thought in his mind. It was with this mindset that Maxwell proposed to Diana. Of course, she said yes. Quick to inform her family and friends about it, Diana hurriedly moved to Clear Lake as she believed she had found a well-deserved husband. Diana's marriage with Maxwell soon came, a successful one, you could say. But what wasn't successful was that Maxwell still maintained his clandestine affair with Selena. The dynamics? Well, with Diana, Maxwell played the role of a devoted husband, often showering her with gifts, romantic dinners, and constant getaways, simply splendid. Diana was already deeply in love and excited to share the details of her new marriage with anyone who would care to hear them. Diana basked in Maxwell's lovely deceit. You see, Maxwell's encounter with Selena was never open. Just like it had always been in college, this same arrangement continued. On the other hand, the underlying tensions began to grow, but Diana, deeply in love with Maxwell, was unaware of his continued infidelity. But it didn't take long before Diana's idealistic view of their relationship began to dissolve. Interestingly, just a few months into their marriage, Diana began to notice subtle changes. Maxwell randomly taking long-hour calls at midnight, changes in behavior to Selena's pressure. Diana remained unsuspicious, but only knew she found herself facing a husband who was increasingly distant. You see, from the very beginning, Selena had no intentions of leaving Maxwell, despite his marriage. As a well-established accountant she had stood with right from their early days in college, she wasn't ready to let go that quickly. The odd thing was that Maxwell and Selena usually met at out-of-the-way restaurants or nights in Selena's secluded apartment, not far from Maxwell and Diana's home. Whenever they met, Selena alternated between desperate pleas for him to leave Diana and tiny accusations of betrayal. Her paranoia and desperation only increased as time passed. Maxwell, noticing this, started becoming increasingly distant from Selena, and once again he had created an intense and volatile environment that Selena needed to exert her control over Maxwell. Selena began seeing Diana as a threat. Her obsession with Maxwell was nuts, and she took pleasure in it. The two women would often find themselves at the same local event. Diana, clueless but charming, initially tried to befriend Selena, as she often noticed the same face anywhere she went. But Diana was unaware that this was Selena's careful plan to take her out of the picture. Diana invited Selena to a girls' night out and other local events happening in the neighborhood, unwittingly providing more scenarios for Selena and Maxwell to meet. Maxwell observed the growing relationship between the two women with a worry that Diana would sooner or later figure out his hidden affair with Selena. But at the same time, he reveled in the fact that two beautiful women were competing for his attention. Unknown to the couples, Selena's walls in her house were covered with Diana's pictures. She had devised her method. You see, the night before she carried out her devious plan, Selena stood behind a mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her and remembering Maxwell kissing his bride at their wedding. Her mind was as hard as a rock. The plan? A staged, hit-and-run accident that would leave no trace of her involvement. You see, it was quite easy, really. Selena knew that Diana had this healthy habit of taking early morning walks around the neighborhood, and so this would be her perfect opportunity to strike. At 4:25 a.m. on a foggy Saturday morning in March, the streets of Clear Lake were quiet, just as they had been countless times before. Diana, with her hair tucked tight and her shoes laced tightly, was ready to begin her walk. On the other hand, Selena Jones was waiting, with her heart racing behind the steering wheel and her hands gripped so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. As Diana began to walk, Selena turned the key in the ignition with the desperation of getting Maxwell back. The next few moments passed in a blur of screeching tires, a muffled scream from Diana, and a loud sound of collision. Selena hurriedly drove away from the scene. However, Diana had been crushed by a sickening thud of impact. It was a jogger who found her lifeless body on the street an hour later. But it was already too late. Despite the paramedics giving their best effort, Diana was already dead at the scene. Selena's plan seemed to have worked perfectly. Having carefully planted her alibi, the cops treated the situation as a tragic hit-and-run accident. Sadly, Maxwell got to hear about his wife's death uncontrollably. Even at the funeral, he was seen as a helpless widower who needed to be comforted. He was shattered both inside and outside. Now Detective Katrina Peterson, who interrogated Maxwell at the time Lauren Hillis died, was assigned to the same case. Getting to know that the same Maxwell, whose girlfriend died in college, also lost his wife, she knew there was more to this than the surface could show. She began to investigate deeper, and slowly, it began to make sense. Detective Katrina had interviewed Maxwell, friends, and neighbors in Clark Lake, including Selena. Selena, meanwhile, struggled to maintain her composure with the thoughts that the cops may come knocking at her door one day. The guilt of her actions started terrifying her. Detective Katrina, however, uncovered inconsistencies in Maxwell's story. Unexplainedly, large sums of money were seen withdrawn from their joint account. Several neighbors reported they had seen Maxwell and Diana in a heated exchange in the weeks leading to her death. The detective's attention also turned to Selena. However, Selena played the role so stealthily that her actions were masked. But Katrina sensed she was hiding something. At this point, it all made sense. Maxwell's suspicion grew so much at Selena that he wanted to cut the ties he had with her completely. Upon his actions, Selena wasn't having it. Everyone was out of the way. What could stop Maxwell from going to her? It was these deep-seated thoughts Selena took to confront Maxwell at his office after hours. On a warm spring evening, Selena approached Maxwell's office building. As she went around the building, she noticed Maxwell's window open. Peering inside, what welcomed her was the sight of Maxwell caressing an unknown woman she couldn't recognize. Selena was hit with shock, and a rush of thoughts hit her as to why she murdered Diana. She quickly barged into Maxwell's office. The next thing was a huge confrontation from Selena. The unknown woman had to rush out of the office in disarray, and Maxwell wasn't having this. He quickly threatened that if Selena didn't leave his office immediately, he would call the cops immediately and expose her involvement in Diana's death. Selena, filled with pent-up rage, walked out of the building. However, unknown to Maxwell and Selena, 29-year-old Angelina Ludford, a senior accountant who recently joined Maxwell's firm, had eavesdropped on the heated exchange Selena and Maxwell had in his office. Angelina, who was already drawn into an affair with Maxwell on the promise of career advancement, was shocked outright. What would follow would set the tone for the final act of this tragic play. On an early Monday morning, Angelina arrived quite unusually early at the office with a plan. 29-year-old Angelina, driven by betrayal, stormed into Maxwell's office, peeking through his drawers, files, and emails. Angelina decided to gather enough evidence of Maxwell's wrongdoings, the most being that Angelina was now aware of Selena's involvement with Diana's death. She knew she should go to the police, but the fear of professional repercussions as to why she and Maxwell maintained an intimate relationship held her back. Angelina, now armed with evidence, couldn't go to the cops, but rather chose to confront Maxwell to see if at least her mind would be settled after she did that. That evening, Angelina entered Maxwell's office. She immediately confronted him. But as Maxwell would always do, he threatened Angelina, just as he had threatened others. The air in the room was hot with rage, and Angelina couldn't bear it any longer. She immediately threatened Maxwell with the evidence she had carefully extracted from his office 2 days ago, including Selena's involvement in Diana's death and how she knew the two shared a clandestine relationship. Soon after, in a move that would leave the two dead, Angelina threatened she would take the evidence to the cops if Maxwell didn't fulfill his promises of career advancement to her. Maxwell, on the other hand, wasn't going to allow this. You see, as Angelina attempted to leave the office, Maxwell attacked her swiftly. However, Angelina came prepared. Having overheard his exchange with Selena, 29-year-old Angelina Ludford carefully concealed a pistol in her purse before she confronted Maxwell. As Maxwell attacked, the next thing that followed was the ring of a shot. Who gets shot? Maxwell. Now here's the twist. This same day, Selena had intended to assassinate Maxwell to cover her tracks. Now on that evening, Selena immediately drove to Maxwell's office. Though she was met with the silence of an empty building, she wasn't deterred. She just wasn't done with Maxwell yet, and she had to execute what she came to do. Upon opening Maxwell's office door, she was met with the pool of blood sipping through the body of 30-year-old Maxwell Roberts, the smoking gun in Angelina's hand, and the fear of what she could do next. At that moment, Selena was hit with a mix of shock and grim satisfaction that the one person in her way was now out of the picture. Before Angelina knew it, Selena drew her weapon, a pistol initially planned to be used on Maxwell, which was now pointing directly at the face of 29-year-old Angelina Ludford. Yet again, another ring from the shot of a gun. Angelina Ludford dropped dead to the ground. However, it didn't take long before the sirens of the cops were wailing in the distance. Upon arrival at the scene, 30-year-old Maxwell Roberts and 29-year-old Angelina Ludford were found dead, lying in the pool of their blood. "Get on the ground," the cops said to Selena, "and your hands behind your back." At this moment, Selena was lost in words. Her world of control carefully crashed down on her. It was devastating. Detective Katrina Peterson, armed with the evidence Angelina had gathered and a series of recorded footage from Maxwell's home and office apartment, began piecing together the series of events that led to Diana Chambers' death. Selena Jones finally broke down under Detective Katrina's questioning. "Did you plan this? Did you think you could get away with this?" Detective Katrina Peterson said this to Selena. In Selena Jones's words, "I tried to control it. I don't know what came over me. It was an..." Her voice faded away. Want to see more like this? Then click on the video you are seeing on your screen now.